In the past few days, I've seen a lot of political pundits bringing up the death of YouTuber Gonzalo Lira, otherwise known by his internet handle CoachRedPill.
But on social media, there were a few people reporting, in what seemed like a pretty honest way, from within Ukraine. And one of them was an American citizen called Gonzalo Lira.
While yes, it is true that his death at the hands of the Ukrainian government is a good angle to take for those against funding their war effort, I find it funny that almost everyone talking about this story doesn't bring up the actual insanity of who this YouTuber was, and why he was in a foreign war zone to begin with. So today I figured I'd tell you a bit about the life and death of this internet oddity. To start this story out, Gonzalo was born on February 29th in 1968 in Burbank, California. He grew up in several different countries including Ecuador and Chile. He graduated college in 1985 and taught English in South America until 1991, before receiving a bachelor's in history and philosophy in 1995. It was after this that Gonzalo moved back to LA to pursue work as a writer and producer. He found some success receiving a $1 million advance for his first commercial thriller. It was critically panned, though his second had its film rights sold to Miramax. However, his career path changed entirely in 2010, after starting his blog. For the next 3 years, he published his thoughts on subjects like economics, even getting reposted by Business Insider. It was his first major step into the online space, but this paled in comparison to the attention he would soon receive on YouTube, where he discussed dating and relationship advice under the name CoachRedPill. Needless to say, his teachings were quite controversial.
Women are like dogs. They are exactly like dogs, and never forget that. You have to treat them like you would treat a dog. Firmly.
Every woman I've ever been with responds extraordinarily well to a almost violent physical encounter.
He published over 500 videos to CRP, gaining over 300,000 subscribers. He became quite a notable figure in the manosphere, appearing on a variety of different podcasts and internet blood sports panels.
You don't see that in Eastern Europe. Oh no. I mean, a lot of these girls, yeah, they're fucking virgins. Yeah, they're virgins until they get married, and they're very adamant about it. Yeah, because they know the value of their sexuality.
While controversial, he gained a decent amount of money from this content. But that all changed on November 15th, 2021, when every video on his channel disappeared. They were instead replaced with a final message for his fans. He explained that the West was on the brink of war with China, and would fall into totalitarianism. This led him to relocate to Kharkiv, the second largest city in Ukraine. He urged his viewers to follow in his footsteps, stating that they wouldn't get another warning. This plan, as it turns out, had been in the making for quite some time. In the months prior, he scouted out the location with plans of forming an enclave. I could buy a big house in downtown Kharkiv, they're cheap, and let Western dissidents use it as a landing zone or meeting house. Dissidents could stay for 30 days for free at this house, but you'd be expected to help in the upkeep or improvement of the landing zone. The end goal was to encourage his fan base to relocate with him. In the subsequent post, he outlined the rules for this proposed compound. Every resident was expected to contribute 2 hours of labor 6 days a week. No drugs, alcohol, or gambling was allowed. Any theft or physical violence inside the house would result in the instant eviction or a call to police, though this could be circumvented with a street fight. It was a place of free speech, unless you insulted Gonzalo himself, which led to an instant eviction with no exceptions. Finally, the landing zone was to be exclusively male. No females could stay or even enter beyond the foyer area of the house. If all this wasn't strange enough, things took an even more bizarre turn once Gonzalo announced Project Mayhem. It was named after the organization from Fight Club, which had left a deep impression on him.
I think it was in 1999 that the movie Fight Club came out, and it hit me like a train. And I went to see it on the first day, and I loved it. I liked it enough that I saw it another time that week. And during the course of its theatrical run, I must have seen it at least 4 times. It had a huge impact on me the first half. The second half got stupid.
On December 11th, 2021, Gonzalo posted the following message to his Telegram. "This is mayhem, and this is your first homework assignment. Toothpicks. Cheap, small, harmless, effective. Clog the enemies up with toothpicks." He instructed his viewers to jam the locks of any and all buildings their enemies depended on. That included federal buildings, the homes of politicians, and any business that denied services to the unvaxxed. The act was to be recorded on camera so he could grade them. Some followed in his footsteps, with clips surfacing of individuals doing what they were told. The absurdity of this ordeal finally caught the attention of the internet gossip forum Kiwi Farms, who put him on the front page. They noted he was doing so while living in a war zone in eastern Ukraine. It spurred debate, as at the time Kharkiv appeared quite far from the war zone. However, Russia was mobilizing troops along the border, which meant if Russia launched a third invasion, he would be directly in conflict. Gonzalo continued undeterred, streaming frequently in the coming months. He disputed any notion of Russia buildup, going so far as to call it propaganda. "I am in Kharkiv, Ukraine, 40 kilometers from Russian border, living here with my 2 small children, so I have a strong incentive to know what's going on. No war is coming. It is a complete fabrication. I think the Americans are planning a false flag operation that they think will make it seem that Russia are the aggressors." Project Mayhem appeared to be in full swing until February 24th, 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine in the largest attack on a European country since World War II. Kharkiv was presently under attack. By chance, Gonzalo was not in Kharkiv at the time, visiting a friend in Kiev.
I am in Kiev, in Krashatik, once again. I went to visit some friends, and I'm walking back to my hotel. And I can tell you that it feels very much like the eye of the hurricane. It's just very, very peaceful, as you can see. I don't know if you can see the traffic, but it's just very ordinary.
He was only supposed to be there for a day, arriving by plane. The invasion led to all flights to be cancelled and every train to be booked. The only way out would have been in cars or buses, which was infeasible due to the colossal traffic jam. This meant he was trapped in Kyiv while his wife and 2 children remained in Kharkiv. The next day, air raid sirens would be heard blasting outside his hotel.
You guys hear that? Yeah, there are air raid sirens.
In light of this, one would think the best course of action would be to prioritize your own safety. But this was not the case. Instead, 3 days later, Gonzalo began criticizing Ukraine and calling its leadership evil.
What really bothers me is that the Zelensky regime has no trouble causing a humanitarian crisis. In fact, they welcome a humanitarian crisis. They would love to see dead Ukrainians. And I know this for a fact.
He even uploaded a video insulting journalists to their faces.
All the System Pig journalists are here. See? All these people, they're all System Pig journalists.
This only continued in the coming days as he streamed and guested on shows to voice his support for Russia. Many of his talking points came directly from Kremlin media, with even the host calling his views optimistic. This was enough to catch the attention of Russia Today, a state-controlled television network funded by the Russian government. His commentary was used by RT to bash Ukraine and the West. The report spread onto Twitter, where people immediately began scrutinizing him. His confidence was attributed to the fact that he had a Chilean passport. CRP thinks he's bulletproof because he's got his Chilean passport on him, and Chile and Russia have what he thinks are strong diplomatic ties. Gonzalo was ultimately removed from the hotel by management, but allowed to leave for Kharkiv by train. Even still, he reiterated his previous sentiments, claiming it was all a distraction of war by the West. He did, however, issue a statement on the use of his analysis for Russian propaganda. Gonzalo revealed he suffered personal mistreatment in Kyiv as a result of the broadcast, as well as death threats. He clarified he was not a paid agent, and was only concerned with presenting the truth. The next day he doubled down, disabling comments due to the sheer number of threats. Not helping the matter was his video being shared by Ramzan Kadyrov, leader of the Chechen Republic and a colonel general in the Russian military. By this point, his life appeared to be in constant danger, but Gonzalo only became more inflammatory for seemingly no reason. That made it extremely concerning when on April 16th he uncharacteristically went silent. That included no showing a podcast he was scheduled to appear on. The host revealed he lost contact with Gonzalo, formally announcing he'd gone missing. Then hours later, an unconfirmed report emerged. Breaking news: Gonzalo Lira was killed by Ukrainian SBU after an investigation of Russian spies. Ukrainian authorities confirm 1830 local time. Despite its dubious authenticity, many took it as fact and reacted as they would to his passing. It was amended the next day by Sarah Ashton Cirillo, a spokesperson for the Ukraine's Territorial Defense Forces. This was corroborated by Gonzalo himself 4 days later, emerging alive and well. The YouTuber confirmed he was picked up by the SBU and had his technology confiscated. While he couldn't say much publicly, he was forbidden to leave Kharkiv. After all of this, you may think his instigation in the active war zone may have slowed down, but it did not, as within weeks he was challenging Keemstar to a debate on the subject of Ukraine. That August, he was called out by YouTuber Jake Bro for trying to pressure him into appearing on his channel.
Look, one of two things are going to happen, Jake. Either you're on my roundtable defending your position, or I'm making a video of why you're not going to be on my roundtable. Your choice.
Even pro-Russia accounts grew tired of him as they dug up his old red pill-centric past. When he appeared on a large pro-Russia YouTube channel, the replies similarly rejected his character. The image was wearing thin, as he became known as the dating coach who taught men how to sleep with Eastern European women. He was finally able to secure a debate in January of 2023 with streamers Destiny and LaserPig. LaserPig was a vocal critic of Gonzalo, criticizing his Ukrainian roundtables. Laser later claimed to know the actual reason he was being investigated by the SBU, alleging he was a spy, had self-deported, and was no longer in Ukraine.
It's not... No, he's self-deported.
Oh, he ran!
No, he asked to be deported because when he was arrested, okay,
Right.
what he was doing, he was arrested because of, he was potentially a spy. He thought he was a spy because what he was doing, he was just running around Kharkiv, taking pictures of Ukrainian positions and Ukrainian troops and everything.
Right.
And it turns out he was being paid to take pictures of the Ukrainian artillery positions and mortar positions.
This was disproven when on May 1st, Gonzalo Lira was detained in Kharkiv, with footage of the raid surfacing days later. The official video is strangely edited like a viral short, with shots displaying his dirty bathroom and toilet. He'd stayed in Ukraine after all, likely due to the same order following his initial absence. Gonzalo was accused of violating Article 463-2. They referenced his denial of the Bucha massacre and a video of him insulting Ukrainian soldiers. He was formally charged on June 29th and released on bail July 6th. Now on house arrest, Gonzalo finally realized it was in his best interest to flee. On August 1st, the day before his next hearing, he posted the following: "Right now I'm trying to get out of Ukraine and seek political asylum in Hungary. Either I'll cross the border and make it to safety, or I'll be disappeared by the Kyiv regime. This is what happened to me over the past 3 months. I was imprisoned because of my videos, no doubt. The videos are why the SBU arrested me, but as they investigated me, they realized that I'm not poor. So once they had me imprisoned for my videos, the SBU took the opportunity to extort money from me, using the guards as accomplices, who in turn used the prisoners as muscle. How I discovered this is too complicated in a Twitter thread, but I'm writing a book about it." In total, he claimed to have been extorted out of $100,000 by the SBU. This time it looks the same is happening. They're telling me not to leave, but leaving the door open, or so I hope. Or maybe I'm being set up by them so they can justify putting me away in a labor camp so no one will ever know about their sordid extortion scheme. I simply don't know, so I decided to die trying. I rode my motorcycle across Ukraine, 1,400 kilometers in 2 days. The escape was ultimately unsuccessful, with Gonzalo unfortunately stopped on the Ukrainian side of the border. This was confirmed by court documents filed 3 days later. He appeared in front of the court on August 4th, where it was decided to re-detain him. He was transported back to Kharkiv, where he awaited trial. It was around this time that his story caught the attention of Tucker Carlson, who had recently been fired from Fox News. That June, the anchor released his first official Tucker segment on Twitter, with a portion criticizing Ukraine. He followed this up weeks later with a reference to CoachRedPill.
Just last month, Zelensky threw a man called Gonzalo Lira into prison indefinitely for the crime of daring to write about the Ukrainian government in unflattering ways. Now, what's interesting, what separates this from other such cases, is that Lira is an American citizen. So Joe Biden, who is quite a bit of SWAT, as they say in Ukraine, could have freed Gonzalo Lira within hours. But he didn't. He didn't want to. He didn't say a word about it. He remains in prison tonight.
On December 9th, Tucker dedicated an entire segment to the prisoner. He highlighted the lack of a U.S. response and interviewed his father, who read out a statement. The clip received over 40 million views, propelling the story to the mainstream. Elon Musk spoke out in support, alleging he was being tortured. Ukraine denied this, though the same individual was notably a witness in the case. In an effort to gain sympathy, Gonzalo Lira made up allegations of abuse and torture. As someone who spoke to him shortly after he was returned to custody, it was clear that he was in good health and treated extremely fairly by the state security services. It's worth noting now that in the past, Gonzalo claimed that he had heart conditions, with only 18 to 22 months to live in 2022.
See, recently I found out that it is unlikely I'm going to live very long because of a heart condition that I have. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it because it's nobody's business but my own. But it's fairly serious, and the likelihood is that I'm not going to be around for more than 18 months, 24 months, something like that.
If true, this placed him at a far greater risk for any potential health complications. On January 4th of this year, a letter purported to be from Gonzalo was made public. I have had double pneumonia, both lungs, as well as pneumothorax, and a very severe case of edema, swelling of the body. All this started in mid-October, but was ignored by the prison. They only admitted I had pneumonia at a December 22nd hearing. I'm about to have a procedure to reduce the edema pressure in my lungs, which is causing me extreme shortness of breath, to the point of passing out after minimal activity, or even just talking for 2 minutes. His father fought for his son to receive proper medical attention for weeks, but in the end, it was unsuccessful. On January 12th, Gonzalo Lira passed away in a hospital at the age of 55. His death was confirmed by the United States and Chilean governments. As mentioned at the start of this video, a flood of new attention was brought to this story, many of whom were critical of the US's involvement in the war effort.
Lira, with his work, was committing acts of journalism. Let's contrast the silence on the case, for example, to the Russian detention of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gersovich.
They martyred Gonzalo, declaring him a journalist and praising his work as a filmmaker. And with that, I only can laugh at how a story can so easily get spun to be so one note. Was CoachRedPill detained for free speech and treated poorly in prison? Yes. But was he some noble and respected journalist? No. At the end of the day, Mr. Lira will go down as a side note of the 2010s anti-SJW and Red Pill movements online. It was mental illness mixed with an overwhelming level of hubris that brought him to Ukraine in the first place, and a disregard for his and his family's own safety despite warnings every step of the way. Because of this, his father is now left without a son, his sister without a brother, his wife without a husband, and his 2 young children without a father. He took his edgy internet persona to a war zone and paid the ultimate price.